Tony and Brian and those other fellows. So we need to introduce people to football. This year we did that. We brought 30 new boys into the program. Additionally, we keep them coming back. 19 boys returned as second-year players. This year, because of age, we're going to lose 11 players. I'm sure that we'll be around the 50-player roster again next year. That'll be about 3 years in a row. With the talent that we've had on this team, we feel real good about the future. Every one of these ball players that we had were excellent in their skills. They really developed, and we're proud to say we didn't introduce any one of them to soccer. We want to keep them, they're going to stay here, and we need to bring them along. Our biggest problem that we're facing in the 70-pound team is that the kids are getting bigger every year. Again? Because of the number of kids that we do get out for the 70-pound team, it is a practice that we separate the team into the varsity and junior varsity squads. I'd like to first of all introduce to you the junior varsity squad. This is the official team, which it carries a record. Unfortunately, JV teams at this point, although they keep a record, they're not in with the league. But we recognize them as players on the team. They do play. The JV play their own roster. The varsity plays a roster. As I mentioned, our varsity team, only 2 losses for the year. Excellent year. If I could ask the team moms if Betty, Ann, and Roseanne are here to give me a hand. First of all, our outside linebacker, Brad Bachman. Gives you good contrast now after you've seen the 130s, you get to see the other end of the spectrum here. Our nose guard, Russ Brick. Middle linebacker, Stevie Brown. Defensive guard, Sean Carr. Another defensive lineman, Kevin Crane. Defensive end and halfback, Kevin DeSchmidt. Kevin here. There he comes. Our 7-year-old, our 1 7-year-old that made the varsity team, Mikey Davidovich. I should say, Mikey, I'm on a diet, Davidovich. Right, Mikey? One of our all-purpose people, although he did start primarily on the defensive line, he played offensive line, and when we needed to throw it to Georgie Hess. George here? Yeah, there he is. I can see that hit a mile away. The lucky one who kept winning all these door prizes, and I have to say, without a doubt, I haven't seen anyone with an attitude to play football as much as this fella. He came into camp at 78 pounds. He lost 8 pounds to make weight. He would not stand on the sidelines without playing. He would let the coach know, put me in the game. Cameron Neza. Our kicker and left end, Patrick Lynn. Our speedster, outside linebacker, halfback, Jakey Logren. Another one of our linebackers, Robbie Manis. One of our first-year players who played like he was around for 3 years. He played offensive end, defensive end, Jimmy Matthews. Also a halfback, right? Another offensive lineman, Jeremy Murph. One of our wild men on the defensive line, Al McGinn. Our quarterback and girl stopper, Harry Morag. One of the fellows was sick and he had to leave, but he is on his way to being one of those hitters like Mark Sowers was talking about earlier. Patty O'Brien, with a name like that, he has to be a football player anyway. One of the stars of the team played halfback or number 2 back, and also linebacker, and he was the guy you called on when you needed it to happen. His third year he's played for me. This year was his third year. Ryan Pollock. Another first-year player, and I'm not sure if he's here, but Johnny Rankin. Not here. Thanks, Cameron. What'd I say about that boy? He is right on. Another one of our second-year players, one of the toughest kids on the line. You just had to get him mad. Davey Roberts. Where you at, David? Once he got mad, he was crazy. We did have a Weight Watchers club on our team because of the fellows that were overweight. And the head weight watcher, after Coach Bob, was Mikey Sand. Where's Mikey? There's our center, defensive line. Every team has a mouth on it. Our mighty mouth this year, as well as a good play. I didn't even call his name and he's walking up. He knows it. Stevie Schaefer. He was safety and mighty mouth. The ability to hit somebody in the run fast may have a little bit to do with size, but hitting somebody does not have anything to do with size. Absolutely one of the smallest players on our team, but definitely one of the hardest hitters, Christopher Spizak. Another one of the girl stoppers coming up here too. And last on the varsity squad, and I don't think he's here, is one of our offensive linemen, defensive linemen, Paul Stokes. Okay, Paul's not here either. This isn't a wild group. We had 24 kids on the varsity team, and Wally will show you the 25 on the JV. But the only way you get fellas that come out and don't even know what a football looks like is to work is with the coaches. Fortunately, on our squad, we always have and are blessed with a number of coaches. I'd like to introduce them to you, and once again, I will not cast blame on all the ties. But first of all, our offensive coordinator, John Pollock. Helping John on the offense was Harry Moran. On the other side of the ball, our defensive coordinator, it's been with me now 3 years, John Pierce. The next coach is questionable whether or not he helps, but we'll introduce him anyway. Other defensive assistant, John Stewart. Also helping out with doing offense and defense is Nick Sand. And our special teams coach on the varsity team, Dan Clark. Okay, that's the varsity guys. Okay, varsity guys, if you can go take a seat or we'll never get the JVs up here. I already mentioned that because of our numbers, we do run a junior varsity squad, and right now I want to introduce the head coach of the junior varsity, Wally Brodowski.
True first feeder program. We have to get the kids ready to play, the 6 and 7-year-olds ready to play for Bob and John and Harry and all those fellas next year. It was a real gratifying year with predominantly 6 and 7-year-old kids. Against 8-year-old competition, we had an 8-2 record. So the kids really made a good account of themselves. I'd like to introduce the players now. Number 50 and a defensive back, Patrick Blewett. Number 77 and a defensive lineman, Joe Boyle. Number 88 and our largest player. In fact, he might have trouble making the 90s next year, Cole Badinsky, our center. All right, number 31, our fullback, Matt Brodowski. Number 61, offensive lineman, Joe Bashimi. Number 8, another defensive lineman, Wild Bill Crowley. Number 32, and a offensive and defensive end, Chris Eastlick. 20, defensive back Jeffrey Fishman. Number 43, defensive lineman Jeffrey Harrison. Number 82, offensive end Chris Clowder. Number 41, offensive and defensive lineman Matty Lesko. Number 23, defensive back Sean Mayer. Number 66, defensive lineman Pat Murphy. Number 42, an offensive lineman Bobby Nolan. Number 45, a defensive lineman Chris O'Neill. Number 10, a converted defensive lineman into a running back, Stephen Peard. Another running back, number 30, Kevin Pollock. And offensive end, Eddie Ramirez, number 40. Number 11, defensive back, Brian Roberts. And number 12, our quarterback, Mikey Stewart. Number 21, running back, Brian Sweeney. Number 86, defensive lineman, Nate Wolf. Number 29, defensive back, Zachary Wolf. And number 52, an offensive lineman, Brian Yeager. Good job, guys. Nice season. And I'd like to bring up the rest of our coaching staff. A good and excellent coaching staff, by the way. My right-hand man and defensive coordinator, Bob Sweeney. Bob's assistants, John Lesko. Another defensive coach, Pat Blewett. And combination offensive and defensive coach, Dwight, don't call me Dwayne Yeager. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody, especially the coaches on both the squads, and absolutely, without a doubt, I can't give you the value of them, our team moms, Betty Ann Peard and Roseanne Stewart. Okay, guys, sit down. They get it out. Yeah. If I could have, who am I calling up? I think Mike Stewart. I got here something.
Kevin.
Brian Pollock and Mike Stewart.
For all the players, I would like to thank all the coaches, especially Coach Wally, for staying so calm. But I don't understand why your face always turns so red. Most of all, I would like to thank Coach Bob Grandinetti for staying with the varsity so the JV could win some games. I hope you're having a great time. First, I'd like to say I hope everyone had a good and fun football season. I'd like to thank every coach, especially Coach Grandinetti, for my 3 great seasons on the 70s. The defense is so glad Coach Beard came back after his injury. But just think, one safety. I'd like to thank the coaches again for dedicating their time to the Football Association. Finally, I'd like to thank all the mothers who made the season successful. Thanks, and I'd like to see every one of you back next year. Don't forget to bring a friend.
All right, thanks everybody. Okay, if I could have Kathy Toomey, please.
In the next 5 plays, he was going to destroy somebody. And we had a few runbacks this year where he just totally annihilated people. He's a real hitter. Played guard for me, did a super job. Mike Watson. had a very good year for us. He was only 8 years old the whole year. And for an 8-year-older to play on the 90-pound team is exceptional. There's quite a distinction between the 70s and 90s in terms of maturity. And this kid just did an outstanding job. Steve Woods. My last 6 guys are my 11-year-old specials. On the 90-pound team, you're allowed to have 6 11-year-olds who are under 75 pounds. So not only did they have to put out the same amount of effort as everyone else in terms of football, but some of them had to watch their weight the entire year. It's really not a fair rule, but they just did a great job. The first boy I'm going to introduce, I introduced earlier, is a 5-year player, an outstanding hitter, tailback, and linebacker, Billy Brecker. I also introduced this other boy earlier, and I call him the bad boy of the team. And I'll tell you, as I said earlier, you need a guy like John Ercolino on the team because he is a leader. He keeps everybody hopping, including the coaches. And I wish I had 10 John Ercolinos. John? The next boy started the year out at quarterback for us, and he played safety as well. As I said before, our offense is very complicated, and it's a very difficult position to play. You have to be very intelligent to play. And he just did an outstanding job for us at both safety and quarterback, David Gunning. And I suppose if we have a Mighty Mouse 1, we need a Mighty Mouse 2. This boy started left end for us on offense. Probably everybody he faced was twice as big as him. And he just did an outstanding job blocking. John Pierce. Next, I'm going to introduce the boy that finished quarterback. I mentioned him earlier. Jeffrey has played 5 years. He's just a tremendous, tremendous athlete. He can do it all, anywhere that you want, anytime you ask him. What a super effort, Jeffrey Stewart. The very last guy I'll introduce, I don't know what his nickname is, but I would just say that it should be Studs, because he's probably the biggest stud going in the 90-pound level, and that's Joey Yentzel. Next, I haven't introduced the team mothers, although I referred to Joyce. The 2 team mothers were Joyce Yentzel and my wife Connie. And now I'll introduce my coaching staff. I've already introduced you to Bob Lockyer. The next gentleman was just a tremendous asset to me. He was our defensive coordinator and line coach, and we had very many lively exchanges, which made me a better coach. Bill Becker. The next fellow was my statistician. His game day responsibilities were to take care of timeouts to make sure that we effectively used all of ours. Jim Storch. The next fellow was my defensive spotter. He used to spot the defensive alignments and come report to me so that I know what plays to call. He's a tremendous person, Paul Steves. The next gentleman was probably our all-around guy who did all the odd jobs for us, lined the field when we needed, ran and got things, Greg Nolan. And the last guy who likes to be referred to as our conditioning coach, although I think he was probably better as our assistant vice principal on the sidelines. He was responsible for maintaining all control during game days, Steve Woods. This is the 90-pound team, and I tell you what, every single one of you, it was just a real pleasure to be involved with you this year. I hope all you boys continue to play football, and I thank everyone for their... Hold on. And I thank you for everything. Thanks.
Stay there a second, guys. Don't move. Back where it's going. Okay. Johnny Beard and Mike Lockyer, please. No, stay there.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to take a minute to thank Coach John for putting together an offense and 2,000 easy-to-remember plays, and Coach Bill for coordinating a defense. I'd also like to thank all of the other coaches for helping run the drills, and the team mothers, Mrs. Yancel and Mrs. Eastlick, for their help. Once again, I'd like to thank all of our coaches, for their time and effort.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We, the 90-pound team, would like to take this time to thank our assistant coaches, Mr. Lockyer, Mr. Storch, and Mr. Steves, and Mr. Nolan, for all their hard work and support. Mr. Woods, thank you for making our calisthenics more fun than work, and for keeping our spirits up even when we were down. Mr. Becker, thank you for a great job of preparing our defense for each game. We know it wasn't always easy, but you always found a way to make things happen. Then there's our head coach, Mr. Eastlick, with all the pressure. Most of it on us. Just kidding. Mr. Eastlick, thank you for our winning season and for taking this team to the playoffs. It was great that our hard work and your hard work paid off. We, the 90-pound team, appreciate it. And we would also like to thank the best team moms we ever had, Mrs. Yancel and Mrs. Eastlick.
All right, thanks, everybody. At first I thought he had a 3-pager in there and he pulled that thing out.